and welcome to another episode of the ISO Play. And I am your host, KB. And on the ISO Play, we focus on facts, not favorites. And per usual, we have 4 topics that we're going to discuss. We have Fix It or Forget It. We have the Mismatch of the Week. We also have the Flagrant Take and my personal favorite, the Wild Card. So this week, we're just focusing on the NBA. We're going to talk about some trades that happened. We're also going to talk about the NBA draft. So the first segment, Fix It or Forget It, I want to talk about Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets. Now, I remember where I was when I saw this. I was at a golf course covering an event and it pops up on my phone and I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. Stop the presses. We have to stop and talk about this. So this was probably one of the biggest trades that we've seen. And so let me just break down the trade. So the Houston Rockets traded Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks and the 10th pick in this year's draft that we just saw and 5 second rounders to acquire KD. And this particular trade was surprising, but there was a lot of rumblings about it for a while. So we knew that KD, one of the teams that he was interested in going to was the Houston Rockets. And we also heard a lot of people talk about Jalen Green. And if Jalen Green could not step up in the first round against the Warriors, he could see himself out. He basically, Stephen A said, could be playing himself out of Houston. So we saw this trade happen, and I want to talk about whether or not this is going to be a fix-it for the Houston, or if we should forget it and probably see this as a trade that's not going to work. Okay, so I just want to break this down. First, KD, as we know, is a veteran player. We're talking about an older, late 30s, 36, 37-year-old player who is now going to go to a team that's loaded with young talent. Jalen Green just turned 23 years old and was coming into his own. Now, I personally love Jalen Green. I went to a Hawks game just to watch Jalen Green. I mean, the boy is exciting to watch. He has a lot of highs, and when he plays high, he does a great job. But then you also have times when we saw in the playoffs against Golden State when he has lows. And that's very tough to watch. And if you are a coach on the coaching staff, if you are in the front office, or even as a fan, you get frustrated with this young man because you know he has so much upside to him as well. So you talk about KD. He comes with championship pedigree. They already have that on the team with Fred VanVleet, who won a championship in Toronto. So now they're bringing in KD. We're talking about all-time great with KD. We're talking about leading scorer of the league. We're talking about Olympian. We're talking about freaking KD here. This is what we're talking about here. And let's talk a little bit about Jalen Green and what he did produce in the regular season. So Jalen Green had a very solid regular season, averaged 21 points, 4 rebounds, 3.4 assists. I mean, again, flashes of greatness. Again, I had a chance to watch him when he played in Atlanta. Super duper exciting to watch. Unfortunately, in the playoffs, that number tremendously dipped. And of the 7 games that they played, the majority of the games, he averaged under 10 points. How do you, if you're supposed to be the man, if you're supposed to be the next man up in Houston, and you only score less than 10 points in, what was it, 5 of the 7 games? I mean, it's like he didn't show up at all. I mean, he had 1 game, I think it was 35 points. Great, awesome, man. This is the guy we want. Jalen, yes, this is it. And then we see him in the rest of the games. It's just like he forgot to show up. Did he wake up? Like, what happened? Did he stay at home? What's going on with this young man? That was very difficult to watch. And then you see KD. Ever since he left Golden State, it's been a struggle for him in the playoffs. You know, Phoenix underperformed. Now, I would say I was not one of the people that thought that Phoenix was going to be spectacular with the acquisition of Bradley Beal. I didn't think that was going to be much success, to be honest. You have Bradley Beal, that's a scorer. You have Devin Booker, that's a scorer. You have KD's a scorer. The three of them did not work together. It just did not. And so now KD wants a better situation. And now he finds himself in Houston. And we're talking about with the coach, Ime. I love Ime Aduka. I mean, he's like literally, he's probably my favorite coach right now. He's so no nonsense. He preaches defense. He preaches playing hard, giving everything you have. I absolutely love Ime. Like, he's man. He's my favorite coach. So when we talk about forget it or fixing it, we do have KD, who is an older player. You know, he's one of the people like LeBron and Steph and Draymond and all of that group that are finding themselves on the other end of their career, right? So on that end of the forget it side, which is the con side of this, and we also see how is that going to work out pairing him with a younger player like a Jabari Smith Jr., who is trying to find his way. And then also Sagoon, who I love Sagoon. You don't want to mess up the rhythm of the young players who are coming to their own. And we saw Sagoon become an all-star this year. So we don't know how that's going to work because KD is a scorer. Now, we have to think to ourselves, was this about winning now? Because again, KD's on the other side of his career. Because you did trade away a young player who, as we know, did not produce well in the playoffs, still has upside, still has promise to get a KD. So it looks like Houston Rockets are saying, we're trying to win now. We're trying to get our team over the hump now. They were in second place in the West majority of the year and ended up being in the second seed. Now, I will say I was terrified when I saw that their draw was going to be Golden State. And I was right to be afraid about that because I said, oh man, we have Steph Curry. Like, oh my gosh, like, oh, Steph is still Steph, right? So we saw that happen. So again, you have to say, are we trying to win now? Because we were the second seed. I don't know how much the favorites they were because they were a younger team. And then you think about what would have happened had they had a KD on that team. You have the second seed and KD going against his former team and KD knowing how to be a scorer, because one of the things that they were missing in that series was scoring. Now, they knew how to play defense at times because, again, Ime preaches defense. But there were also stretches where we saw that they were struggling scoring. And the person that you're supposed to be calling on to help you with the scoring when you're at a scoring deficit isn't actually producing it, isn't actually scoring. So we saw that happen, and KD can definitely fill that void. But again, on the forget it side, are we compromising young talent and the growth of our young talent for an aging KD? So that's on that side. Now, I will say one other concession to this is that I'm excited to see what this looks like because I'm a KD fan. I do love KD and I love me some Rockets. And so we'll see that. On the fix it side of things, which is the pro side of this, is we're seeing again that KD is going to provide that scoring that they were so missing in the playoffs, that they needed a lot of time. So KD, you know, KD is going to score. We know that he's going to put up numbers, even at his aging side of his career. He's going to put up numbers. He's going to produce. You don't have to worry about that. So again, that's something that they were missing, something that they're going to have now. So when we think about the Rockets moving forward, you gave up the 10th pick. You gave up a lot of the second rounder. So that's a lot of potential young talent that you won't have, right? So what I also was not a fan of is losing Dillon Brooks. Now, Dillon Brooks is a great enforcer. I thought he was perfect for that system. He played defense when you needed him to. And so every now and then, you know, Dillon could throw up some threes and do some things on the offensive end. Now, nobody called him KD on the offensive end, but when you need somebody to be an enforcer, you need someone to guard your best man, you need someone to rally your team. Dillon Brooks was great for that. He was so much better in Houston than he was when he played with the Grizzlies. I thought Ime was a great coach for him. I am so sad to see Dylan Brooks leave. That is one person where I just felt like, did you have to give up Dylan Brooks too? Really? Oh man. It's like, could you have found a way to keep Dylan Brooks? Because I thought he was just a really good piece on that team. So, but I do wish them the best. And just to tap a little bit into the Suns, even though I know that this segment is about the Houston Rockets, I am concerned for the Suns. They, to me, it's like you have Booker, you have Beal, and you have now Jalen Green. In essence, aren't they all playing and doing the same thing? It's like, uh, and there has also been some talks that Jalen Green may not actually settle in Phoenix, that he may be part of another trade, but which to me seems more realistic because you have three players that to me play pretty similar. And what are you going to do with three players that play similar? You're just going to have the same thing you just had before. Okay, so that's a whole different conversation, and maybe we'll do a segment on the Suns and talk about that. But this segment is really about the Rockets and KD. So now I have to decide whether or not this particular trade is a fix it. Again, some of the positives is scoring drought, definitely championship pedigree that KD brings to the table. And then we have the forget it, where how is that going to work? Is it going to stifle the growth of the younger players that are on the team? Drum roll, please. Without further ado, I am going to say this is a fix it. And because for one, it's a win now situation. I do think that it's going to be a good fix for them. And that fix can be anything from getting out the first round, because that's exactly what they did last year. Is this going to bring a championship to Houston? Ooh, that I'm not ready to answer just yet. Championship? Do I think that it's going to make them more competitive? Yes. Do I think it's going to improve their scoring, which was one of their deficiencies? Yes. Do I think it's going to help them get out of the first round? Yes. Am I ready to say that the acquisition of KD is going to make them a champion? I am not ready to say that. I want to see some games together. I want to see how they play together. I want to see the chemistry. I want to see how the younger players are going to adjust to playing with KD. And then I think I'll make a better assessment if I feel like they're a championship caliber at this time, because we've been saying this for KD's last few stops, and we just have not seen it produce anything close to a championship. So I'm going to say it's going to fix it. I do think it's going to improve the team. I do think it's going to help with scoring and playoff and all of that, but I don't know about championship. We'll see. All right, now let's move on to our next topic, which is the mismatch of the week. This one, woo, talk about drama. Talk about two entities that just aren't really meshing and becoming a marrying right now. Let's talk about Ace Bailey to the Utah Jazz. So Ace was already in the news and had a lot of headlines when he said he was not going to work out with anybody. He was not going to do interviews. He was going to skip workouts with a number of teams. He just was like, look, I've already showed you my resume. I'm not going to do anything. And he talked about certain teams that he wanted to draft him out, or better yet, one of the ones he would prefer to draft him. And Washington was one, Brooklyn was another, Pelicans was another. And he made it very clear he did not want to play for Utah. And he's very talented, as we know. There is no question about his talent. And he just said he didn't want to play for them. And we saw some of the videos of his facial expression, body language when he was drafted. And we all know in communications, Nonverbal communications can sometimes speak louder than what you actually say, your actual verbal communications. And his body language and his face was like, what the hell? He was not happy. He was not satisfied with getting selected by the Jazz. And, he admitted in his post draft that he had no idea that Utah was even serious about drafting him. And so, what do you do now? He didn't want to do any press interviews after being drafted. We all know there's so much press done after someone is drafted, with the team, with the media. I mean, it's everywhere. Like media outlets, there's press everywhere, and he did not want to participate in much of that as well. And so, where do you go from here? A lot of people are calling him entitled. I heard former NBA players say that it's the wrong approach to take. And so we look at it now where we're seeing a lot of players say, I don't want to play for this team. I don't want to play for that team. And this is not the first time that the Jazz has had this. Dominique Wilkins was also drafted by the Jazz and said he did not want to play for them. And because the Jazz were hurting for money, Dominique Wilkins was able to get out of there. And that's how he found himself to Atlanta. So he was not drafted by Atlanta, but he was able to get out of there because the Jazz needed money. Therefore, he was able to be shipped off to Atlanta. I'm not sure we're going to have that situation now. So what do you do? My perspective on this is I like the fact that younger people are speaking up for what they want and things like that. I think that's a positive thing. But I also think that we have to keep in mind where it's a privilege to be able to play a sport that basically a childhood game that we play that you can play professionally. I see it as a privilege that you're able to do that and get paid for what you love to do. There's so many athletes that don't have the opportunity to play something that they enjoy that maybe they're also really good at. And you are a top pick, you're a lottery pick, and you're saying, I don't want to play for that team. So again, I applaud you for saying, I want to play for this team, but sir, you don't really get a say in this. You don't get to say, I don't want to play for a certain team who is drafting you and bringing you into the organization. Now, the Jazz have to think about it. What am I going to do? This particular player is already disgruntled. They haven't played one game, haven't signed anything, haven't done anything, and he's already disgruntled and doesn't want to play for us. What do you do? It's like you're at an impasse, but something's going to have to give in this situation with Ace Bailey. Now, I don't think it's a good look for him. Ultimately, whether he's playing for the Jazz, whether he's going to sit out and say, I don't want to play for this team, so I'm going to sit out until I get my way, whatever the result of this is going to be, whatever decision he decides to make, it just doesn't look good for him. It just doesn't. It makes you look like a spoiled brat. It makes you look whiny. And whatever happens, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to sign, I'm going to play with the Jazz, I'm going to do whatever, the relationship is already fragile because of what was done or what was said or the body language, so on and so forth. And if you sit out and get your way out of this situation, the other team has to deal with this too. And what if you don't want to play for them? This is already setting a precedent that if you don't want something or you don't like something, you're going to quote unquote act out. So this is a huge mismatch where you have a team that's drafting a player who, for one, did not work out with anybody, who did not want to interview with anybody, who said, this is where I want to go. And he's not going there because you drafted him. And you have a player that said, I told you all where I wanted to go. I said my resume is going to speak for itself. That's now saying, I don't want to be here. I don't want to go to that team. And again, this is not the first time we've seen this in basketball or football or any other sport. So we'll just curious to see how this turns out, what happens in this situation. But I wish both parties the best. Hopefully they can come to a resolution for this. And, we don't want this to overshadow the wonderful night for so many other players. We had Dylan Hopper get drafted. Father played Ron Hopper, and his absolute gorgeous mother. Oh my gosh, she was stunning. Wow, stunning. Congratulations to Cooper Flag, number one pick. It hurts my heart. I'm a UNC fan, but we definitely want to shout out and focus on the positive things that happened at the draft for all those amazing players that we're grateful and we're happy and appreciative to the team that drafted them, because for a lot of them, it's life changing. For a lot of them, this is a chance to create generational wealth for themselves, their family, and so on and so forth. So, we'll just see how this turns out for them. Okay, so now let's talk about the flagrant take. Ooh, this particular topic I want to talk about is there appreciation for college basketball? Does the NBA have an appreciation for college basketball and those players that are playing for years, that are staying in school for various reasons? Many of them maybe because they know that their draft stock is not as high as they would like it, so they stay in school. But the question is, are we seeing these particular players who are staying these years, the Caleb Loves, the RJ Davis, all these other players who do a good job during March Madness? You seeing them dominate, play well, have deep runs in March Madness, but when it comes to the draft, a lot of times we don't see them drafted, or they're drafted lower, and we see a lot of the younger players who have potential, who have electrifying athleticism, get drafted beforehand. So the question is, does the NBA turn its back on college hoops and those players that are seen as leaders or floor generals? We see a lot of those players, and I talk a lot about RJ Davis, obviously because I'm a UNC fan, but that's literally what he is. Did he have a year last year where he regressed? Yeah, he did. He last year when he played, but he is a floor general. He is a leader. He has taken his team deep in the tournament at times. So we see players like that who don't go drafted. Now, I am going to talk about RJ Davis and a few other players in the next segment. But we're also seeing those 4-year players, those proven leaders, they get passed over all the time because teams are now wanting raw talent. They want people with upside. And a lot of times the older players, the ones that have been in school, and some we have that's been in school for 5 years because of COVID year, we're seeing them as if like, hey, we've already seen their upside. We already know what they can do. We don't want to draft them because we want someone who maybe we haven't seen a lot of them, but we know they have that raw talent. We know that their upside is great. So we want to pick them versus someone that we've seen is proven, because it's kind of like the workplace sometimes when someone's worked a long time and they try to get a new job or something like that. And they're just like, well, we know you have a lot of experience, but we want a younger person who doesn't have as much experience, but we can see that they have great potential. It's kind of like that. So again, that's the question is there an appreciation for those seniored players, those players that have played a lot of years when it comes to the NBA as well? We see a lot of international players who maybe you don't get to see a lot of tape on them. Now you're seeing more than in years past, but even so, comparatively speaking to a player who's played 4 or 5 years, you don't see as much as them play. And you're seeing them get drafted and you're seeing them play. So you're seeing them get drafted before these players who you've seen a lot, you've seen them proven, you've seen them go deep in March Madness and things like that, because again, you see the upside and potential of international players as well. Teams definitely want to have more length, more youth, more theatrical skills. That's what we're seeing a lot of. And there are definitely advantages to younger teams. We saw that. We even seen in the NBA Finals, we saw 2 younger teams. But it's a little different when you talk about college and players who are 18, 19 years old versus maybe a young NBA team, right? So I think that there's a difference in there. And when we're seeing that these teams, when they're drafting, they want these young, lengthy players and all these other things. It's like what's being overseen are those intangibles like the IQ or the leadership or the toughness, those things that you really need on a team to bring all that together, to bring that cohesiveness to the team. So when you have that floor general, you have that leader, that person that's going to be tough no matter what. A lot of that stuff you can't coach. You just have it or you don't. And for some reason, we're seeing that that's not really valued in the draft. Those players you see are going either low in the second round or they're going undrafted. They find themselves on the team and they're sometimes that glue that brings the team together. So that's what we're seeing too. And we're not hearing a lot of people when we talk about scouting or what they want in a player when they're drafted. We're not hearing a lot about this person is a winner. This person is a proven winner or proven leader, or this person is a floor general, or this person is able to command and control and take. Like, we're not hearing words like that as much as we're hearing this is a great project for this team, or this person has a lot of great potential or things in their tool bag that we need to focus on to bring the best out of them. That's more of what we're hearing and less of we want someone that can be a leader on the team. So we're not really hearing a lot about somebody that's ready now. Yeah, okay, so they've been there 4 years and you feel like, hey, that's the best they can do because they've been here 4 years and we've seen their potential and we've seen them go deep in the March Madness, or we've seen them win a championship. Thank you so much. Your services were great. We're not really valuing that player. We're valuing what could be, or somebody that could be ready one day, someday. It's a project. We have to work with them. We have to do X, Y, and Z versus the player that's coming to you already. Hey, they've already did their thing. We saw that with Steph Curry. We saw that with Dame Lillard. These are players that were there 3-4 years. Okay, so value those players too. We're just not seeing a lot of that. Now, I'm not saying that a Cooper Flag, for example, is not going to be a generational talent. I hope he is, and that's hard for me to say as a Tar Heel fan, but I hope he is. I hope all these other young players, these freshmen that were drafted, I hope they have very great, successful careers. But a lot of times you've seen them 1 year and you say, hey, that's it. That's the potential I want, versus the player that, again, you've seen them 4 or 5 years and you're just like, hey, we already know what they can do. And what I also notice is that I don't know if we value the March Madness performances as much as we used to. I don't know if those performances carry as much weight as they used to. In years past, when the outstanding player, we just knew that this person like became ready-made, or if we are just so enamored with the young high flyer that maybe his team got knocked in the first round, or maybe he didn't have the best March Madness, but we know the potential. So we got to consider that as well. Are we valuing what we see in March Madness and those players that are older, that are carrying their team on their backs and they're performing well? And that's a question that we have to think about as well. And I want us another example we have of that. Let's think about a Jalen Bronson, for example. Now, I know people say he was undersized, he's small, et cetera, et cetera. They still joke about his height now. Jalen Bronson was player of the year, and he was a second rounder. It's like, what else can the man do? Like, what else could he have done? Right? And he won a championship. I think he has 2 championships. I know he won one as a freshman. When they beat my Tar Heels. So, but I want to talk about that. But I just feel like that's a great example of we're seeing a player who played so well his 3 years at Villanova, champion, and is going in the second round. It's like everybody thinks that they're going to get this young potential player that's going to just basically everybody thinks they're going to get Kobe. Okay. Even though, again, Kobe did not go to college because at the time he didn't have to, but everybody thinks they're getting that. And sometimes you don't get that. Hopefully we'll see a combination. I'm not saying let's just not draft younger players and let's not consider potential or high ceiling, but also consider some players that have a proven record and don't think just because they were there 4 or 5 years that, that's the most that we're going to see out of them. That's the best we're going to get out of them. Just mix it up a little bit, have some variety a little bit. So hopefully we see some of that going forward. But, I just hope that coaching staff, developmental staff will also look at the weight of those potential players who have been proven and who have shown that they're going to be a leader for your team because they were a leader for their college team. So that's my goal, what I hope to see. I do value those players that stay for a while and that are proven. So, all right, let's talk about our last take, which is our wild card. Now, I kind of talked a little bit about this in the last segment when I talked about the older players or the senior players, if you will. I want to give a special shout out to those players that did not get drafted, but they were not unnoticed. They had an opportunity to sign two-way contracts. Some are going to be playing in the summer league. Some are going to have an opportunity to actually showcase their skills. So I just want to take a second to showcase some of them and highlight them. And we know most of the night was focused on our lottery picks. And I named some of them, our Ace Baileys, our Harper and Flag and so on and so forth. It was really about a lot of them, the draft, especially the first night. And then, of course, we saw some players for the second round that wanted to stay and get interviewed and have their moment on stage. So we definitely want to congratulate all those players that had an opportunity to be drafted, especially those that had opportunity to walk across that stage. Such a great feeling. And it's a feeling that only a few can experience and only a few know. But I do want to take this time to give a shout out to some players that were able to get signed. Antonio Reeves had an opportunity to get signed. PJ Hall, Trey Alexander, RJ Davis, former teammate of RJ's, Caleb Love, Ryan Nimhard had a chance to get signed. His brother was just in the NBA Finals, so congratulations to that family for that. So those are just a few of the names that I wanted to give a shout out to for having the opportunity to showcase their skills. A lot of these players are the players that I just talked about, ones that have showcased their talents throughout their time in college and weren't drafted. And I just wish each of them so much success as they go on to showcase themselves. And I'm just excited to see how Summer League goes for a lot of them. And so we'll see how they go. And so thank you all so much for joining me for another episode of the ISO Play. I am your host, KB, and join me next week as we talk about Mismatch of the Week, Flagrant Take of the Week, Wild Card of the Week, and Fix It or Forget It. See you all soon.